Innovation Unplugged from the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center takes you inside Alabama's workforce development. Join us for enlightening conversations with community leaders and industry experts showcasing experiences, addressing key issues, and celebrating successes in the workforce initiatives across the state. All right, listeners, friends, family, thanks for coming back to another episode of Innovation Unplugged. I'm Houston Blackwood, Workforce Director for the Innovation Center. This is an exciting show, man. Sometimes I get to interview people that I don't know. The first time I met them is in studio. And occasionally I get to meet folks or talk to folks that I've known for a long time. And I'm thinking like almost 15 years. Yeah. So inside our ex-to-be-named studio is Wes Chenault, and he's the Director of Coaching for Durbin Leadership.
Correct.
Yeah, man, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So if you're, an avid listener, and you all should be, in the last episode, we heard from Dan Durbin of Durbin Leadership, and he laid out really what their mission is, what your collective mission is, and some pitfalls and things that folks can do if they're upper level, middle level, or new level. But what we're going to get in today is really the aspect of coaching, which is your role. And from what I hear, you apparently rocked that for Durbin Leadership. So, but I'm not surprised. You've been that kind of human since I met you. I don't know. I guess you were a sophomore. I had just gotten to Hartselle.
Yep.
Something like that.
A long time ago.
Yeah, it is.
Golden days.
Back when things didn't hurt because I just woke up.
Right.
Got hurt sleeping.
Same boat now too. Yep.
It happens. Yeah. So, Wes, give us a rundown, who you are, where you've been, what you've been doing, how you got right here.
Gotcha. That's a long story, so I'll kind of give you the Cliff Notes version. So I'm the director of the coaching division for Durbin Leadership. So we have an incredible team of coaches that we deploy for all of our customers. Depending on the needs, we have specialists in logistics, we've got specialists in administration, different backgrounds and industry experts on the team. But I get the honor and the privilege to deploy them out to add the most value as we can to our customers with their needs that they want to deploy into their leadership team. So, and I just love coaching. Like it's one of the things that I've found a true passion for. I love getting in the weeds. Dan's more of the overview, 60,000 foot, like let's strategize and come up with an organizational plan. And as you do that, as that work starts to stir up the team, you'll start seeing some other individual opportunities, some unmet potential, or some potential that you don't know how to really tap into with the middle manager or even on the executive team. And so that's when I come in and I really dive into the weeds with that individual. I see what their motivators are. I see what their individual goals are, and I help them kind of strategize how to obtain their fullest potential. And that came from a background of coaching football. I actually played college football for a year before I blew my shoulder out, where I was a quarterback, and that's where we met. I was a quarterback at Hartselle. And a lot of those leadership roles that I was in, I never asked for. I never raised my hand to be the one in the room that led the team. It's just been kind of a gift that I've been able to step into, and get baptized by fire in a lot of regard.
Yeah.
Running a family business, running teams of hundreds of people, a lot of things that I can, get into the details of. But ultimately, I just know that God's blessed me with leadership skills and tactics, and just having a command presence, and have just had a lot of incredible opportunities that I've learned a lot of lessons from. So I get to take those lessons that I've learned and put them into tools and into strategies and resources that I give to my clients and help them create some momentum for where they want to head.
I love all of that right there. You said that phrase, command presence. I've got a son, he's 16, and I watch he's got an incredible group of friends. Some of them are wild, they're going to be the rowdy ones. And some of them are quiet. But I see in both groups, and Rowan's kind of right in the middle. There's different, some of them are really different and have that presence already, whether they realize it or not. And it's fun to watch young men. It's fun to watch grown people walk into that and accept, oh, gosh, okay, that's why I'm always in the mix of things, because I'm that person. But then they get there and then they're like, oh my gosh, what what now? And you said baptized by fire, and that's exactly what happens. I think our group, we started this thing with 4 people, and then we expanded to like 7 into 10, and then almost instantly went to 20.
Wow.
And as Dan was talking in that previous episode, there was some doers and there's some executives, and everybody in between. And my goodness, we've all stepped into it. And some are still growing, and some are some of us are like myself, like what in the world's going on? Like we're it's chaos. And so when a person is in that situation and they're trying to figure out, yeah, they are a leader because they are part of an organization that is supporting and guiding, sometimes an entire college. Understanding really what they're supposed to be doing, and how internally or externally they need to give coaching.
Yep.
Right. So before we get into all that, what are from your experience, professional, personal, what are the components of good coaching?
Yeah. I think the most important characteristics that a coach brings to the table for their team, their client, even a family member, I think it starts out with the outside perspective. And Dan alluded to that in his podcast, is just being outside the whirlwind, not being emotionally entangled with all of the situations that's riling up the team, and has a lot of emotional energy. Being able to come in and stabilize an environment and a thought process that creates that momentum to accomplish a goal. When you don't have that, then it's almost like there's a competitive nature that comes in.
Oh, yes.
And you start to see like, well, if I do this, then that's going to happen. And man, that's risky. I don't know if I should put enough effort into this that I really feel like I should. So with that outside perspective that comes in with the coach, you kind of can borrow some hope from them. It's like, hey, I get that you're spun up on this. I know that this is scary. It's risky. It feels unsafe. But if you don't do this, like, man, look at all the other things that could possibly happen and could steer the team in the wrong direction.
Right.
So having that outside perspective is critical. And I really take a lot of pride in my ability to disassociate from getting emotionally invested in the ones that I coach, because if I'm dependent on the results that they give back to me, then it's going to contaminate the way that I see the plan playing out, So I really, and that's important for everybody that's stepping into a coaching role or responsibility, is like, hey, be aware of your emotions. Like, don't get so devoted to feeling good about everything that you're going to do that it's going to distract you from the main goal. So that's number one. Number two is just really solidifying clear goals. Like, okay, where are we headed? What do we need to accomplish? And what's the metrics that are really going to prove that what we're doing is working? Like if you just use hope as a tactic, then, well, if you hope that you're going to improve in your production team without the evidence coming back, well, then there's no clear identifier that what you're practicing or what you're changing is actually making a difference. So you have to be really, when you step into a coaching role, you have to be clear in stating goals that everybody's going to be in agreement with, that's how you become a better leader and how your team is going to improve because of your influence on them. Third is just having a good strategy. Being the one that can bring creative excitement to the problem, and giving, once again, going back to the outside perspective, like, as a coach, you've got a vast array, or you should have a vast array of other environments or opportunities that you've seen that may bleed over and give kind of some secret sauce to this, right? And just having some abstract thinking every now and then, and just awakening some other avenues to explore, right? So strategic thinking is number 3. Not getting so committed to the procedure that you're bogged down by one specific way. I'm going to coach this person and I've got to use that same strategy for the second person. Everybody's an individual. Everybody has their own preferences and personalities. So being able to be strategic with that individual is very, very important. And then the last component is accountability. Like, you gotta hold your client, your team member, and even your family members accountable to what they say they're going to be committing to. Without accountability, nothing's actually going to happen. It's just hope is the tactic once again,
So I like you mentioned, and I don't know if clarify, when you talk about having that good strategy for a team, and every person's different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much the process. You're going to work for every single person the same way, because you're looking to get them to their best way. But then accountability is a little bit different. How do you set that for different people who are kind of in the same level? Like if you were looking at the middle managers,
Mm-hmm.
helping the executive figure out what that looks like, how do you differentiate that accountability for each person?
So I think it comes back to the goals. The goals will be different for each individual that you're
Okay.
coaching. Okay. So you got an organizational goal, right? Like hitting 10 million in sales this year may be what the whole sales team is going
Mm-hmm.
to be pushing for. But individually, like maybe meeting objections is the goal for my number one sales guy
Mm-hmm.
or my number three sales guy. So that's the goal that I'm going to hold that individual accountable to. Like we're going to look at the metrics that's going to prove that what we're practicing in our coaching relationship, that's the metric that we're really going to hone in on. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm going to hold you accountable to.
Okay.
Your sales manager is going to hold you accountable to that goal of 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to be the one that comes in and holds you accountable to that individual goal
Mm-hmm.
that helps you become the best you that benefits the team in a holistic stance.
Okay. I like that. Very clear. You talk about that manager, what their roles are, their goals, expectations, whatever. But what's the difference in your experience between managing and coaching?
Managing, I think it kind of goes back to what I was just talking about. Managing is setting a picture that the whole team is going to be committed to, right? Like you're managing a sales force, you're managing a production team. So you are managing the resources, the tools, right? All the variables that play into how you meet that goal, you're going to be managing all of that, right? Coaching is, okay, we have this individual that plays a very critical part in all of these things coming together,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of these ingredients coming together, but this one ingredient, I need to kind of put some salt in it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need to really add some fire to this guy and motivate him at a different level. So I've got to step into his world and get on a one-on-one basis to
Mm-hmm.
where he sees that not only I really see potential in that individual, but man, I care. Like I care enough to step into your world and put everything aside just to focus on you, who you are, and what's potentially in your future if you add these other variables in and we stick to a strategy to
Mm-hmm.
accomplish individual goals.
That sounds like a very intense process, time and emotion and resources. But what? Why do leaders struggle to coach like that when they're also accountable for the overall results?
It all comes back to capacity. And Dan alluded to that. If there's an executive that has the overview of what the organization is striving for, right? Like how they're going to provide value in the marketplace, how they're going to hit their targets. That takes a lot of energy, and especially for a new executive, like that's their primary objective is to make sure that the organization is running at an optimal level. And sometimes that gets kind of overshadowed when you try to dive in on an individual level with somebody on your team. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody has a capacity level. Like I have a max out point to where I'm like, hey, I've also got a family at home.
Yeah.
Like I've also got like this other group that I'm leading at church or whatever. I've got
Mm-hmm.
vocational things that I'm doing, and all of that plays into your will of life. And everything's going to be an energy suck at some level. So you have to be aware of that, and you have to if you don't have the capacity to pour into an individual that has potential, but you don't know how to activate it, that's
Mm-hmm.
when you have to outsource that coaching. And that can be uncomfortable, and yes, it's an investment, but man, that individual on your team has to have that. They have to have that individual focus and strategy to get the most out of them that benefits the whole organization. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I come in as an executive coach is when an executive owner, even a middle manager sees a team lead that's like, man, I wish I had more time. I had the
Mm-hmm.
capacity, but I just don't have that. Okay. That's where we come in. That's
Yeah.
where we can really add some fire to what you guys are doing. But I think anybody in a leadership role has to know what their capacity is. And if you have that margin, then use that where it can gain the most traction, which is coaching your team.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of block that level of energy off so that
Yeah.
you're intentional and you can prove that you care.
To sit down and take that time.
Yep.
So once that leader identifies, okay, I got Bob,
Mm.
and he needs more time. I don't have it. And then you come in, and you're that third party, and you look at Bob, and Bob's killing it, but he's clearly hit a level where he cannot proceed.
Yeah.
Right, and he's super high performing, got all the tools. How do you get them to understand what's actually holding them back from leveling up?
It's probably one of my favorite parts of the coaching process is the discovery process. So basically what I do, if that's the case, so Bob comes to me and we'll just sit down and I'll start probing with some questions just to get a better understanding of their life overall. Okay. And what I'm really probing for is what I call the lowest common denominator. The thing that if you just remove that from their wheel of life, right? Like if you just remove that from their day to day, everything else would get more streamlined. Like that, their strengths would grow, would do things that they never thought, dreamed, or imagined. But that's one thing that most leaders will look at, and they're aware of it. Like Bob knows there's some things that he probably needs to get better at, but he doesn't know how. He doesn't know when, right? And he doesn't know what exactly to do to make that improve. And so when I discover that lowest common denominator, I'm like, okay, this is one thing that I've heard you say, like subconsciously, 3 or 4 times. Let me poke at that a little bit. Let me see how soft that area is.
Okay.
And once I start doing that, man, the floodgates open up. It's like, oh, okay.
Okay. Is that often something that's professional, or is it personal? Is it all of it?
All of it. All of it. That's on an individual basis, and what you'll see in leadership is there's things that happen at home that they'll bring to work. And then there's also things that happens at work that you'll bring home. And we want to think like, no, I compartmentalize that pretty well. But if you really want to meet your highest potential, you allow that to happen. Like the things that you're good at work should give you an advantage of how you lead your family.
Sure.
Like there's some strengths and some ways that you've learned how to navigate life and what I call human terrain. Like there's some strengths. Yeah. There's some things that you've learned that just work. Okay. So how can I help you learn how to take that strategy of leading your teams at work and to leading your family, And so, but I can't do that if I don't know those lowest common denominators.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. When you're looking at these different leaders, and I think so much they just get caught up in the whirlwind of what's going on. And I talked to Dan briefly about, especially if you're that founder and you're trying to fix everything because you did all the things on day one, and now it's day 10,000 and you're still trying to do those little things. But what happens when you are, and I'm asking for a friend, when you have a close personal relationship with the people that you supervise or that are your superior? How do you coach someone through that, and how to be their most effective when they're trying to get other people they care about to improve?
That's a really deep topic. And I would say, once again, going back to, the process stays the same. So we're still looking for lowest common denominator. And when you add in the variable of personal relationships, one of the most popular lowest common denominators are points of conflict. So, okay, me and Houston are working together. We're side by side every day in our office here. We're friends. But like every now and then, there's like this little thing that comes up that adds a little tension.
Yeah.
Right? And that can just be a difference in preferences. Like you like to do one area of our work one way, and I like to do it a different way. The outcome's the same, but the preferences are a little bit different there, right? So being able to identify that and put a spotlight on it and say like, well, yeah, you get frustrated with the person that you have a personal relationship with, but really it's not that big of a deal. Like that's actually just a secret way that they have learned how to be successful. And let's find a way to celebrate that instead of be frustrated with it. Give some freedom to the people that you care about the most to just let them be them. Because I think, especially as an organization grows really large, it's like we put everybody in the same box and we expect the same outcome and procedures from everybody instead of allowing them to maintain their authenticity. and like their genuine way of just being them.
Mm-hmm.
And that suppresses like potential,
Yeah.
like it really does rob the organization from growth, because it takes the ideation part out of how we can improve this thing overall. So on a personal level, or a personal relationship level, like finding ways that we can identify the points of conflict, and then changing our mindset to celebrate that conflict and see it as our greatest opportunity rather than the thing that hinders us the most.
I love that. I think a lot of times in school systems, speaking of what I know, is those folks have been together for so long, and then they just gotten used to something, and their principal changes, or somebody retires, there's a new person in, and it just gets those quirks that make that person why you wanted to hire them. Now it's like, oh my gosh, they're so quirky. Yeah, but we loved that 6 months ago when they were new to us.
Right.
And now you've gotten to know them, and it's like, okay, they're really good, but gosh, whatever. So getting the leaders to get through that, and that's kind of off topic, but when you're looking at these high capacity folks, what's the common thing for burnout?
Burnout is a very popular topic. And going back to capacity, like I think awareness is one of the things that I help my clients the most, is like really seeing how much things cost. Those personal tension points, like the relationships in your life, whether they be at home or at work, really looking at what is required of you when you step into a room with that person.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're unaware of that, then it'll become your modus operandi, and you'll just be drained every time you have to engage with that person. But if once again you reach into the depths of somebody, and you sit down and you have a different conversation, and you ask them like, all right, man, I just got to be honest, like, Houston, you frustrate the piss out of me when we're working on this kind of solution, and you kind of distract me. Can you give me an understanding of why you do that? Well, then if I get your mindset on that and your perspective and how you are viewing this solution, then I can be more willing to give you some space and not be so emotionally drawn to your behavior. So I think that most burnout comes from just relational equity loss that happens in the process.
Yeah.
If everybody's good and everybody did things just like me, you don't see a lot of people burn out in that. But leadership is messy and people are crazy, and you have to be good at accepting somebody's individuality and being able to give them creative space to be their authentic self. And when somebody grows that skill, that's what enables burnout to go off the table. Like, it's not an option anymore. It's not something I'm going to fall trap to. So it's really people awareness
Mm-hmm.
and knowing how to have a different conversation and
Yeah.
being willing to do that in an uncomfortable way.
And how do you coach someone once you realize they are okay? So you're hung up here because of Jeff and Sally, and they're your peers, your colleagues, right? And your boss expects these things, and it's really clear. What are some actionable items beyond those things where they could say, okay, well, here's how I really focus on my lane, and what they're doing doesn't affect me.
Yep.
Aside from the personalities, but how do they now work through that once they've identified it?
Once you've identified it, then you have to own up to it. So Extreme Ownership, great book by Jocko Willink, gives several military tactics to what I'm about to say. But ultimately, and I've got several examples that I can dive into with this. So we've been brought in with two peers that killing it, like their divisions are running smoothly, but there's just constant tension. Like, there's just something that is hindering the relational equity in the office, right? And we were hired to come in because they're like, we don't know how to handle this. Like, we don't know how to engage with these people. Like, they should know not to get so frustrated. And ultimately, the question that I lead with is, what are you outsourcing your authority to? Like, when you're looking at your division, if you are outsourcing your confidence and your command presence based off of how you feel because of your peer and what they're doing, well, look how much ownership you can't take. Look how much is out of your control now because you have outsourced it to somebody else doing X, Y, Z the way that you need them to. That's being a victim. And you can't be in a leadership role and also be the victim of something outside of your control. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to like jolt them back into, hey, look at this, man. Like you are not taking responsibility for what's most important for your team because you're outsourcing your authority. You can't do that, man.
Yeah. Similar thing. I think some cats in the Bible. I'm not a biblical scholar, but I just finished the Fight Club.
Okay.
No, it's called The Fight with Craig Rochelle, and it's all about Samson.
Mm-hmm.
Now he knew exactly what he should not do,
Mm-hmm.
but he kept doing the stupid thing, right? And it gave away all his strength eventually.
Yep.
Do people not give up? Let's see. How do I phrase this? When you help people realize the thing that they're doing that's keeping them from busting through, and you've talked about it, what do you do when they just keep going back to it?
I say let's go back to it as often as we can. Look for that to be your number one opportunity to grow. So I forced conversation between the two that I was just referencing. I said, here's what you're going to do. Every day, you're going to sit down with each other and you're going to hash out your problem.
Okay.
And you're going to get frustrated with doing that instead of whatever is keeping you from doing that to begin with, until you find the point where it's like, hey, this is reality. We're going to have to deal with this. It's not going to change. So we can either accept it or we can fight it. So there's a time for war and a time for peace, right? Eventually, when you get your teeth kicked in over and over again, it's like, hey, okay, obviously this is a part of our relationship. We can either fight this and be frustrated with each other, or we can just find a way to celebrate each other and give each other our own lanes, stick to them. And when we need each other, we'll come together and just be aware that this is a potential that can come in. But if we're emotionally intelligent, which is one of my favorite topics, if you're emotionally intelligent and you understand this before you walk into that room and you've had a lot of reps, so now you're competent in the way of dealing with this issue, then it's gonna inevitably build confidence that you can come up with some kind of resolution to what you're dealing with. And eventually it'll fade away, but you have to meet it. Like the obstacle is the objective in this case.
I love that. The obstacle is the objective. So I bet that you see a lot of things. You see the problem quicker than the leaders and quicker than the people in there. Is it always that case that you see what's wrong well before the people involved?
It depends on the relationship that we have with the customer. So sometimes a customer will reach out to us saying, hey, we've got a plant manager that here's what we perceive as the problem. And this is what we would like to see the result from his coaching or her coaching. I will dive in and I will use that as background music, but it's not what I'm listening to.
Okay.
So it gives me a heading. It gives me something to consider. But as I dive into that individual conversation and I start pulling things out, I'll start to find out, okay, this is what's perceived as the problem, but this is actually the lever that needs to be pulled. And if we make some traction in this area, that problem will actually solve itself.
So it's almost like a masking issue. Right.
And that comes back to capacity too. Like if you don't have the capacity to know each individual on your team, then you will assume that you know what the problem is. So, but it's because you don't have that outside perspective. Everybody's in the metrics of performance and, allocation of resource. Like everybody's so tied up in the whirlwind that everybody's looking in the wrong direction. When I can look at a middle manager and say, okay, this is what you think is a problem, and this is what everybody else is telling you to look at, but you're getting flanked, man. Like this is actually where you're taking the most damage. So let's redirect our fire and really focus on this issue. And once we make progress with this, you'll find out that where you thought you were taking the most damage, no, man, like that's not that big of a deal.
That's interesting. Do you think a lot of leaders willingly look away because they don't want to deal with it, almost the ostrich approach, or is it they're just so busy on the mission that they just don't notice?
I think a lot of it comes to competency. Like they know what the issue is, but they don't know how to exactly pinpoint it to the point where they can strategize towards it. So they can read a book and they can, throw some literature to it, something like that. But it comes down to, I really don't know how to do this. So I'm kind of insecure and I'm using hope as a tactic that I'm going to throw something up against the wall and maybe something will stick, I think that, and once again, going back to capacity, like if you do that over and over again, you're wasting a lot of your energy.
Yeah.
You really are spending a lot of time and energy and money in a lot of cases on something that was directed towards the wrong problem.
So another good episode of Innovation Unplugged. Thanks for listening. Remember to like, subscribe, and share on all your favorite podcast platforms. Have a good day.